Yeah, I mean, there is a little bit of extra value to it now as well because, of course, there's the Spellstones in Druid as well. So you are, taking a decent chunk out of their deck. Sometimes there's the Mark of the Lotus thrown in there as well. So it can still be a very high-value card against Jade Druid, of course, but that is a big factor why Orange feels like he's very much up against it. He did say, however, that he's feeling a lot more confident than he was last night when he saw the matchups get announced. He ran a ton of practice sets with Chinoys, apparently, and figured out one or two cute little things that he can do to get a little bit of an edge, but still not feeling great about this matchup whatsoever.
And look at that. The opening hand for Glaser already has the Skull King guys against the Priest, and it's a keep.
Yes.
It's a keep because not only the Inner Fire, but also Potion of Madness, Power Ward Shields are getting just destroyed. So if you can just land it on turn 6 because it's a turn 6 player, it's a good minion as well, you have such an edge over possibilities of your opponent comboing any kind of, obnoxious Divine Spirit Inner Fire early in the game.
Right.
That's amazing.
Unidentified Elixir is a very cute card that's come into this deck kind of recently. You can see that because it's not ever present in the decks. A lot of people have brought this Dragon Combo Priest, and very few are playing this Elixir. He gets the Death Rattle version. With
Elixir of Hope.
Yep.
Will it be impactful in this situation? It's not that bad, actually.
Yeah, I think just the +2/+2 in and of itself is kind of useful against Mage. Particularly when you're just dealing with board clears, because this was kind of the case back when Reno Mage was a thing, right? The problem that Reno Mage had in comparison to, say, Reno Warlock at the time is there was no nuke button. They actually had to deal with stats. There was no Twisting Nether that just cleared everything. They actually had to deal in fireballs and blizzards and flame strikes, where the health of your minions actually matters. So that's one advantage that Dragon Priest does have in this matchup, is that they are able to stick very large health minions to the board, and then it's polymorph or bust a lot of the time.
That is correct. In this case, also, the Elixir has additional bonus on cards like Dragon Operative. That's the 15 Operative that you can have in your deck.
Yeah,
so
that's very true.
It's pretty decent.
Orange, you can see, studious as always, making meticulous notes, it appears.
He has to, because he has to get every single percentage point to his favor in every single game.
Yeah.
You have a chance to win this entire match, because, as you said, he's unfavored lineup-wise, so whatever edge you can get, you need to iron that out.
So, problem number 1, that's an uncontested Radiant Elemental. Can't be dealt with. This is one of the things you can abuse about this Mage deck as well, is that if you do have, board objective type minions, things that most decks would just, throw a removal spell out and get rid of, you can abuse them against Mage, because, the Frostbolts and Fireballs, the regular spot removals that have been in, pretty much every Mage deck since the beginning of time, well, they're not here. So you can stick things to the board early game quite consistently.
It's actually fantastic to see a deck that doesn't run Frostbolts at some point.
Oh, boy.
Well, this can be a 7/7 minion right now. And then you can coin out your Dragon Operative into Dragon Operative. Seems like a decent curve.
It does. And I think we saw this from, was it Yala in the previous series, where he very specifically on turn 5 just dumped his Inner Fire to make a 6/6 just to get some kind of usage out of it before Skulking Guys could come down. And it wasn't in the hand on that occasion, but that's the thinking. You have to get usage out of these cards before Geist can really come down and ruin you. Yep, I like the play.
And still no answer to that 7/7.
Yeah, and I said it earlier, polymorph or bust, right? And in this case, it's bust. He's going to be taking a beating from that thing.
Even a Fireball would have been helpful, unless you trade in the creature as well. But then a Red Elemental goes back into the hand, and, well, you didn't win that much
right
in the end.
Even then, Fireball is just not an option.
You can play Artificer. Makes no sense. But you just cannot allow to lose your armor value in the late game, because that's something that can get back, can pull you back into the game.
Right.
And if you just lose it right now, it will be not most likely to a AoE effect and not a direct attack from the elementals, since that would be like kind of waste of damage for Orange. And he is aware of it, that he needs to be the beatdown deck. So this is why, first of all, he played that Inner Fire. Apart from playing around these cooking guys, he just wants to have a decent-sized minion that will pull pressure on Glaser right now.
Exactly.
So 2 options for Orange available right now. Either drawing another card with the Cleric this turn to heal up his Elemental to full, or just coining out the Dragon Operative. The reason why he was thinking about both of those options is Dragon's Fury might be an option for Glaser next turn, and having both minions at 6 HP makes it kinda unfortunate for a Blizzard or Meteor draw. Obviously, if it doesn't get that, then the Arcanal just needs to be traded in. But Dragonhead Operative on 4, it's a huge body that puts another threat on the board. So if there's no Dragon Fury, it's an amazing board state to have.
Right. And of course, the other play there is the Polymorph, by the way, which can at least reduce some of this pressure. But the second big minion of the Draconid Operative is going to pay out big because of the Polymorph does come down. But yeah, about the Dragon's Fury, he could make the other play with the Cleric and heal up, but then Dragon Fury is going to sweep his board anyway, right? And then, he can play Operative from there and curve out, but then his Operative just runs into spot removal like Meteor at that point. Like Orange, again, I think you put it great early on. Like Orange recognizes that he's the beatdown in this scenario, and when you are playing the more aggressive strategy, you kind of have to shut your eyes and ignore cards a bit more. So if he just sits there and is like, okay, I'm going to play around Dragon's Fury this turn, I'm going to play around Meteor next turn, I'm going to play around Firelands Portal next turn, well, then you're just not going to get anything done.
I don't think you kind of can play around cards. You just need to minimize the damage that they can do.
Exactly, yes.
So you will lose minions, but you try to lose as, not many minions as it would be possible with a full clearing example. So you want to always have at least one minion on board that survives an AoE and just attacks, chips out the damage from your opponent's hero every single turn. Unfortunately, this turn, he is pushed to kill the Artificer, because that's a minion that cannot be left on the board. Otherwise, it will just nullify the attack from the Draconid Operative, most likely even get more value than the attack from the Operative will do.
Yeah, I was going to ask you.
Alexstrasza, Frostlit, Jaina, and a Polymorph. Obviously, you take the Polymorph. But jokes aside, Frostlit, Jaina, in this case, it's quite good.
It's good, but I do think people freak out a little bit too much when Priest gets it in this matchup. We saw it at the World Championship, for example. Sintalol got it against Frozen in, probably like the best series to watch of the entire tournament. But the problem is like the Mage deck is built to abuse the Frostlich Jaina hero power. They have Blizzards and Flame Strikes and Meteors and so on that can do the little break points that you need to then ping a minion and get a Water Elemental. Priest has none of that. Like they don't have spells to like leverage it. So
he has a Dustbreaker.
He has a Dustbreaker, right? If it comes down to Jaina versus Jaina, the Priest is going to lose.
I mean, they're both mages at that point.
Fair point. If it's going to come down to the ex-Priest Mage and the ex-Mage Mage, then the ex-Mage Mage is going to win.
He basically relies on the same thing that he was relying when he was still a Priest, because you just want to have your minion attack first, deal the damage, and then you can finish it off with the ping.
Right.
Because Orange's deck is just minions being slammed on the board and attacking face. Still, it's a cute card to get.
It is.
Because it's a 9 mana, 5 armor elemental, basically. And then you have an upside of potential new elementals. Well, the Deathwing is always good, especially in Dragon decks.
And he did force a poly as well with that early 7/7.
super far away to play the Death Ring, so Primordial Drake can be played in the upcoming next 2 turns. But at the same time, at 12/12, that is only killable by a Polymorph, as you said, or Meteor that was already played.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's the most, has the biggest potential.
I agree. Yeah, it seems like a pretty natural pick in the situation. And there it is. Jaina is drawn for Glaser, so... Orange could have had a big advantage if he was able to Jaina and Glacer's was like buried in his bottom 5. But yeah, if like I said, if it comes down to Jaina versus Jaina, the mage deck is just much better equipped to be able to leverage the Jaina hero power.
So let's say Orange has the second part of the combo, Divine Spirit, and then a fire that would have been potentially 15 damage next turn. Maybe even more if there would be some way of buffing the HP with a Talon Priest or a shield. So Glazer, just to combat that potential of being, OTK'd, quote unquote, because of the ice block, this turn he just wants to play the Skull King guys even off curve. And he still has his Dragon Fury. So there's a potential of just sweeping the entire board next turn because you get to attack the biggest minion with your Skull King guys,
right.
And then you just play Dragon's Fury.
So I wonder if Orange with Jaina in his hand ever thinks about setting his stall out for fatigue at this point, because it looks like a fairly natural turn to draw with Nausea Cleric, but if he has any inkling that might be a game plan, like even in the very back of his mind, then he might just be reticent to draw with Cleric in this position.
If you're mentioning fatigue plan in this case, he would have to have a plan against Dragon Caller.
Yes.
And that will be either double Dustbreaker or having already a massive board in play. And that's a very tough setup to do against Glazer's Control Mage.
It is, for sure. Particularly, like, Glaser has everything in here. He's got the Alana, he's got Medivh as well, which is kind of the exact opposite setup of what we saw in the previous series from Be Quiet. Be Quiet did play a Medivh, but it's not in his deck. He has the N'Zoth package with Sindragosa instead, and he doesn't play Alana, he doesn't play Medivh. But either way, like, that's a ton of board presence that you have to plow your way through if you're ever going to reset the game to fatigue. So I don't think that's a viable strategy for Orange, but yeah, he said he came up with some cute stuff with Chinoise.
What to do?
Who knows?
Ooh, it's 7. That is actually important. He saves mana. Actually, not important. He still had nothing to use after that.
Yeah.
Right, I got excited for no reason. Maybe because the ice blocks were just picked from the Dragon's Fury in the previous series, like 2 times in a row.
He was nailing it. He was just nailing that ice block every single time. Jeez.
Oh, there's a double Dustbreaker.
But no pressure from Orange this turn at all.
Yeah, that's the problem.
This is why I wanted to draw with Cleric last turn. This is why I felt like it was probably just a better line, because if you went with the Tar Creeper turn, which is what Orange ended up doing, then like what was your plan for the turn after?
If you get cleared, right?
Yeah. And you hadn't seen a big AoE come out to that point, so you were well within your rights to expect Dragon's Fury to come out.
And now Glaser has a perfect setup for Frostlit Jaina as well, since Arcane Tyrant is actually an elemental.
Yes.
So it gets him the lifesteal straight away. I actually won a game because my opponent forgot that Artificer is an elemental.
Really?
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, so he is going to cycle now with the Cleric. Picks up Lyra, which, can always make some magic happen.
If you have spells.
If you have spells, of course.
And as we know, Skull King Guys was already played.
Right.
You can still get the combo.
It's true. He's down. He still has his Divine Spirits. He still has his Shadow Visions as well. So he can go off with Lyra to an extent. Still has another Radiant in hand that he can use to really start a heavy chain. But Yeah, Glaser is the first to Frostlich Jaina, which means that Orange's Frostlich Jaina is probably going to be a non-factor. Or not a non-factor, but not enough of a factor to be able to pull him back into the game from this position. So he's going to need some kind of alternate plan again, and that might just be that Deathwing Dragon Lord at this position.
The Deathwing is kind of problem for the Dust Breakers. Because I was like wondering, like, you know, you keep the Dust Breakers if you want to go for the fatigue plan, right?
Sure.
But then you cannot play the Deathwing because they're just getting picked
them.
out out of their hand.
He has already used one of them anyway, right?
Yeah.
So you'd have to come back to the Netherspite Historian plan. But yeah, it is just going to be the Jaina in response, which is it's expected. It's really the only viable plan he had there. Throws out the emote. Glaser now realizes that this game is going to be perhaps a little more grindy than he might expect, but here you see my point straight away. Look at how easily Glaser can abuse the hero power. Just Firelands Portal on a 3-6, turns it into a 3-6 of his own. Now,
there's a high roll on the Firelands Portal as well.
That is actually insane, to be fair.
With White Eyes.
Yes. And then you look at the opposing side of the board, like what options does Orange have to do the same thing? Answer, none.
Yeah, the board is locked right now. And Glaser's already back to his full health. Well, almost. But he has 31 anyway.
Yes.
Time melts away. Once upon a
Whenever I see White Eyes, I just get, you know, flashbacks to Wild Shaman deck. You know, I was just playing a lot of Wild for that Wild tournament.
The Nazoth Shaman?
And the Control Shaman was
Yeah,
my
yeah.
favorite deck to play. It was just, White Eyes is crazy with all those resurrections and so on.
Has to be a Sarah, right?
Yeah, but Isera, if Isera awakens, it's actually would be impressive because then you can kill one of the water elementals and get the ping on it, right?
Fair. It's also a perfect answer to Alana if it does come down.
Oh, okay.
We took a Nitro. Ooh, spicy.
6-7 minion. Fantastic. Nice to ping after the 2 attacks of water elementals. Orders gets frozen and Glaser just can push for damage.
Yeah. I mean, it would take 2 water elementals down in the process if Glaser was to make that play, so that's kind of a win for you in the long run. But yeah, it's a problem right now. There is another Meteor. And there is another water elemental. And yeah, Glaser can pretty much just do this every single turn from here until the end of the game. He has enough options in terms of the diversity of attacks that he has on the board, 2, 3, and 5. And then he has a source of 3 and 4 in his hand. And 15, I guess, if that ever becomes relevant.
Yeah. It's very tough. It's the matchup was already in favor of Glaser, and there was a chance for Orange if there wouldn't be an answer to that 7-7 for several turns.
Yes.
So he would push up for like 21 damage, 3 attacks with it, then maybe he has a chance to pull off the finishing move with his Dragon's Operative. But that wasn't a possibility because of that Polymorph showing up in a good timing. Not the best timing, but decent timing.
Yep.
And that was good enough for Glaser to just stabilize from that point.
Yeah, I think Orange, had the right game plan, recognized that he needed to go in and did so, but yeah, it's not worked out great for him, to say the least.
time is now.
That's just immediately more food for a ping. It's 4-4.
Yeah, it's kind of unlucky. So 6, 19, 14, 15 damage. 1 off. Can be a meteor and another ping, and just attack for face. Get another water elemental, and not too much. But at the same time, Glaser needs to think about what is that dragon in his opponent's hand,
exactly.
and might it be a Deathwing, the other one.
Yes.
So then what do you do with that guy? And you have the Meteor, so you need to keep it in your hand. This is why he used the Flame Strike instead.
Precisely what I was going to say. That Meteor is just checking one final box. There's one world Glaser foresees that he may be able to lose. And there is the sound of that one-way being expunged from existence as Orange just realizes he has no shot anymore, gives it up. Glaser played very nicely. He didn't really have too much to do once he was able to answer that 7-7, but I think Orange, to his credit, did the best he could. And this is kind of what he was talking about downstairs when I had a quick chat before this matchup. He said, yeah, I'm unfavored, but I put the time in, I practiced with Chinoise, and I think there's a little bit of extra edge I can find if I play really well. So that's kind of what I'm just hoping to do. I just want to play well, and then whatever happens, happens. At that
there was one turn when Orange maybe should have go into different route with the Cleric and draw. Yeah. But at the same time, the Tar Creeper that he lost during that turn, that they don't really do much pressure in the upcoming turn as well. So there's no much difference. Right?
Yeah. But yeah, it's going to be a struggle for Orange throughout, and he's going to go straight back to the Dragon Priest this time, and now coming up against Glaser's Paladin in this case. Control Paladin did not look particularly strong in the previous series, you could say.
Not really.
But I think, that was a reflection of the matchups it was up against. It was just up against much greedier control decks, and there's nigh a worse feeling in Hearthstone than playing a control deck against a slightly greedier control deck, right? It just becomes so difficult to find a win condition in that position. But now Glaser has a much better range of matchups to run Control Paladin into, so I'm interested to see how it performs when it's up against more of the decks that it's looking to beat.
It's like an inevitable journey towards a disaster.
Yes.
If you play a control deck that is not greedy enough to play against another control deck because they play cards like Syndragosa, an example, which is kind of odd, but can happen.
It's like Deadpool driving the Zamboni towards the guy on the ice. It's like, you are going to be dead in 30 or 40 minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Very accurate for Hearthstone. Need to rewatch the movie, by the way. I only saw it in the cinema like twice.
Did you see the cable trailer for the new one?
No, I don't. So I don't watch trailers by default.
Okay, I respect it.
I hate it. It's just most of them, they just spoil the entire movie.
No, they tend to more and more these days as well. They give away like actually important stuff in the trailers. But anyway, Orange versus Glaser.
I mean, it's turn one. Nothing is happening.
But importantly, nothing happens for a shorter time now because of the rope change.
I think we touched that subject yesterday.
We may have talked about it once or twice. Yeah. This is actually kind of an ugly hand for this deck because there's so many of the 2-drops are drawn already. You then get into the position where Call to Arms becomes a dead card later in the game, which I think we saw from Yala as well.
Exactly
in the
what I
previous
was
series.
say. Yala had a first Call to Arms with 1 minion, and then the second one wasn't even played because, that's 0. So definitely problematic. But that's the price that you pay for playing cards that are tutor-like, and they only have like specific targets.
Yes.
Like the Extreme is an example, Arcanologist, Possessed Lackey. Those are the extremes when it comes to tutor cards.
I mean, Patches even. It's kind of the reverse, but it's the same point, right?
Yeah. So there's the risk of playing a card that might do nothing if you draw the other way around the deck.
Orange, like the gentleman that he is, hero powers the correct target.
He just uses the flashbang. Fire in the hole.
And now this starts to get a little ugly. The Pyromancer Call to Arms interaction is always kind of an interesting one. It's a little better for you now since they changed the way the sequencing works in Hearthstone. So, like, if you play Call to Arms and summon a Pyromancer, it's not going to go off.
Yeah, I think that was a very important change design-wise to allow, an example, the control deck of like this to exist. Otherwise, you're going to just kill your minions. It's going to be kind of pointless. And for many people that just started playing Hearthstone, that was confusing. Like, really.
Right. Yeah, you had to like look at each card and see whether it said when or after, and it got very messy. But Not a lot happening. Classic control paladin. Probably historically the slowest. Like it's up there with like certain builds of control warrior, I guess, in terms of like winning through doing nothing.
Still faster than it was because in previous iterations we would have just seen hero power,
Right.
hero power, hero power,
Yes. Very true.
and
I mean,
warrior would be like hero
Hero
power,
power.
hero power,
yes.
hero power, hero power.
That's fine.
Brawl. No, whirlwind. Oh no. All the damage done to those hero powers from Paladin.
Yeah. I mean, that legit used to be the strat back in the day, right? Is you would just press Paladin hero power against Control Warrior and make them clear a bunch of 1/1s with their actual cards.
Then you get double hero power and you press it like twice during one turn.
Oh, dude, Paladin Justicar used to be one of my favorite things in the whole world. Orange choosing just to contest this board, though, immediately. Doesn't want to just sit there and, take a Pyromancer to the face over and over again for the next few turns.
Understandable. Because Pyromancer is actually like a vanilla 2-mana, just aggressive minion. Has the most aggressive stats for 2 mana.
Yeah.
Wait, there's 4-1.
There's 4-1, and there's a 4-4. If you want to get really picky.
Yeah, but then the powered shield would have been for 0.
But yeah, it's something that, stronger control paladin players will recognize as, matchups where you do have to push a little bit. I remember, I think it was Muzzy in particular. It might have been when he 10-0 swept the playoffs. And he was, beating up Jade Druids with Paladin just by, he'd just play a Pyromancer on 2 and then just play an Aldor on 3 and just, start hitting things.
For a second, I thought you were going to say that it's beating people with Millhouse in the store.
No. Rallying Blade here does allow the double value trade into the Cleric, denying card draw. And card draw is actually kind of important for Orange in this matchup. He doesn't want to run out of value in his hand, because running out of value in his hand translates to running out of pressure on the board. And if he ever runs out of pressure against Control Paladin and, Glaser gets to just, sit back, chill, press some hero powers, that's not going to be a wonderful result for him in the long term.
Trying to figure out how many minions are left for the Call to Arms. There 2 Plated Beetles, 1 Dirty Rat, 1 Pyromancer, and 1 Loot Hoarder.
Yep.
There's still a lot of targets, basically.
All right, Divine Spirit shows up. Again, remember, Glaser is playing Skulking Geist in every single one of his decks. So he will be wanting to work towards picking that card up.
And Call to Arms would help with that.
Call to Arms would help with that if he can drop a Loot Hoarder. That Acolyte can do work as well, but right now there's a 3-1 on the board, making it not a very appealing target. But he does have the Acolyte Aldor combination, which is a classic Control Paladin tool to be able to leverage an Acolyte of Pain, which has been a pretty common card in Control Paladins historically.
Now we can see the power of Call to Arms. It pulled a great deal of value.
Yep.
It's you can argue it's 6 mana worth, but cards like Dirty Rat are worth more than 2 mana in a situation like this.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, if a 3 mana, you would play a 3 mana 2/6 taunt, no questions asked.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Probably would have been one of those cards that every single deck would have been playing. Aggro decks as well.
Yep. Tar Creeper effect, right? You just hide all your other annoying little minions behind it and hit them in the face with them.
The protoplast of that was Shieldbearer. That's another topic that we actually talked about yesterday, too.
Yes, yeah.
We're trying to recur the themes.
Orange, going back to his notes, not sure what he'd be writing down right now, unless he's forgotten to make note of the Call to Arms effect and only just put it down.
My opponent is mean.
It's just we just get a camera shot of the notepad, and it's just 12 different drawings of Monka S on a notepad. Right now, that's all he's doing.
No Twitch emotes IDs.
All right, besides he's just going to cycle the Acolyte now. It's interesting. especially since, again, there is just a 3-attack minion contesting it on the board. But, you know, last turn was a solid call to arms turn, so that was probably just what kept him off the Acolyte. This time it's doesn't really have anything else to do, so he's decided he doesn't need to be too greedy with the Acolyte, although, you know, drawing multiple cards off it would get him more of a consistent basis of picking up Inner Fire. Sorry, not Inner Fire. Skulking Geist to destroy the Inner Fire.
Ooh. Those are good picks, usually. Like, wide array of options in every single matchup. Against aggro, Duskbreaker. Against mid-range decks, Dragon Operator. Control decks, well, Operative and Deathwing.
Yeah. Against mid-range decks, Draconid Operative. Against control decks, still Draconid Operative.
Against aggro that is running out of steam, Draconid Operator.
Yeah. It's a hell of a card. All right, starting to find some actual plays now is Glaser. Stonehill Defender can really be the party starter in this deck.
I think you start still with sacrificing the loot order, but I'm thinking,
Yes.
what do you want to attack? I assume the Duskbreakers, since you want to keep the consecration with equality.
Mm-hmm.
Because that can be a turn with Dirty Rat, equality, consecration for 8 mana.
So, Grime Street for the highest value, or Saronite and just jam it now, contest the board state.
Well,
What do we have on board right now? It's the Twilight Drake and a 1/3.
the pressure is not really there. So Grime Street, I think, is a better option, since you can just play it on its own next turn, just as a 6/6 minion.
Right.
Otherwise, the Glazer is just looking at next turn for Dirty Rat, equality, consecration, or just Hero Power Pass.
Hero Power Pass, yeah. Classic
maybe
control paladin plays.
yeah, maybe the Peacekeeper, or maybe the Peacekeeper Tistan, actually.
Actually, yeah, I like this. This makes a lot of sense.
Then I would still prefer to have actually the Grime Street Protector next turn. At the same time, he is able to play Saronite Chain Gang after he clears the board, which is not the case with the Protector.
That's a great point. Yeah, fair enough. But yeah, Aldor on the Twilight Drake makes a ton of sense because Orange does have that copy of Silence, which, you know, if he's not going to hold on to it and try and use it on a Tyrion or whatever else, then if he's going to use if he could use it to remove an Aldor effect on, say, a Draconid Operative, he can't really do it on a Twilight Drake. So
deal 5 damage to it.
yeah, exactly.
Or more. It's like, I still remember the early times of Hearthstone when everyone was trying to like learn the mechanics and stuff. So people learned that you can silence like, freeze effects, but forgot that you'd silence your own buffs as well when they do that. Led to some hilarious situations.
It's Twilight Drake number 2,
okay.
but he put himself in a position with the last Twilight Drake where he wasn't able to play his Operative. So I think that's what's keeping him off playing the second one here as well. He really needs to get the Operative party started here.
Well, next turn has to be Uther, right? And
Yeah.
you don't really mind taking the damage this turn, so you don't need to clear the board because of the fact that you gain 5 armor. You get the lifesteal weapon, so you basically reset the damage that was dealt this turn.
Actually, kind of like clearing some of this board this turn. Like, I don't want to use an equality combo, but you could go like Consecration Saronite this turn, for example. Go 1/2 into the 1/3, and then kill the remainder of the 3/4 with your Aldor, and then just leave the Twilight Drake against your Saronite. And then next turn you can just like dominate with Uther, right? Because you've got yourself slightly ahead on board anyway, and then you just contest whatever Orange drops with the what is the name of that weapon? I'm lacking in role player skills.
From Uther?
Yeah. Okay, good talk.
I'm not the law person to talk
Okay,
to, you know?
fair enough. It's interesting. He does go for the full... I mean, this is the same kind of thinking that he wants to just clear and then set up for a position where Uther is strong. This gives him a little bit more of an advantage because the opponent's board's completely nuked and he still has 3 minions in play, as opposed to just a neutered Twilight Drake against the Saronite in my world. But in my world, he still has 2 equalities in his hand, so I think the 2 plays are pretty close. But I think they're both signaling that you want to just jam Uther on the following turn.
It's like a preemptive Doomsayer, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, we have Aldo Peacekeeper, Plated Beetle, and a Stonehill Defender. So I think having the most gas would be the best. So Stonehill Defender to just pick up another minion from it.
Yeah, get yourself a nice juicy obsidian statue.
Oh.
Those are very much not obsidian statues. Sunwalker, Dirty Rat, Shellraiser. There you go. It's about to call them out for you, but production was on point.
Well, I guess the Tortolan might be the case because it has the highest health value and still relevant death rattle.
Are we ever in Gimmick World where you're just going to try and rat the Nazoth and somehow win that way? Like,
oh.
I'm presenting it as an option. I didn't really believe myself as the words came out of my mouth, but, you know, you have to evaluate these things.
At the same time, that might be the case when you just know that otherwise you're going to lose the entire match. So maybe that's your one ticket to have a chance to win.
I don't think you win even then, though, really. Like, there's still plenty of value to come out from Glaser in that position.
Grave Vengeance.
Right,
this is the first time I actually read the card.
Fair enough.
It costs 8 mana.
We are learning things.
Would you play the card in your deck if that would be like a collectible? 8 mana, 5/3 lifesteal.
I don't know.
I mean, you would have another card in the 8 mana slot.
Right.
It's kind of
Yeah.
kind of bad.
Oh, boy.
Not only you destroy inner fires, but they're already in their hand.
Yep.
A mistake.
Oh. That is gonna hurt. Oh, look at that. Discard mechanic in Hearthstone.
Yeah, I like the Saronite here just to stop the Sunwalker getting any significant value. And it looks like Orange is about to get grinded out of yet another game.
Yeah, the Purity Elixir doesn't really do much here. Purity, right? That's the name? Yes, Elixir of Purity.
What is in Moon's will?
What do you even do? Like, what's your plan if you're Orange in this position now? Apart from draw more Monka S's.
It's really tough. It's like, whatever you do, you're going to be grinded out. The weapon from Uther is just, you know, it doesn't matter if it's lifesteal or not. It's just going to kill your minion after minion. And the Divine Spirit lost its counterpart, so you would have to grind your opponent out with like a 4/14 minion that doesn't really do much.
Right. And there's a 2/2 coming at you every turn, bare minimum, let alone the Tyrians and Nazoths that are going to get fired out later on.
Exactly. So this is like that discussion that we had with the Deadpool analogy.
Yes.
So you know that your opponent is coming at you. It's just he has a very slow car. So and he's not running out of gas.
Spiker Steed is pretty sick. Glaser can't deal with a 6/14 right now. Well, he can't deal with it in any way that's super reasonable. Like, he could just equality it, I guess, but at the same time, I think Spike Ridge Steed for just board tension is also fine. No, Glaser disagrees. Just going to deal with it.
I like this.
He just says this is probably your last threat, and put the Spike Ridge Steed on afterwards. And
I mean, he wins in the 3 turns with the hero power.
That's fair. That is very fair, actually. You're not wrong. Oh, come on!
You wanted to see the power engines?
Yeah,
or what?
yeah.
He would have been dead with just the attacks of the Skull King guys. You know?
Yeah, you're right. But still, this is looking very much like we set it up. And as Orange himself confessed, he is horribly unfavored in the matchup. And it's, Skulking Geist is obviously a big factor to come down to that. But you can see just the deck archetypes themselves are problematic because, sure, like, he could have made, Orange could have made a, whatever it was, 17-17 Sunwalker there instead of just the Divine Spirit. But then Equality still kills it nonetheless. Glaser always had taunts in the way, so it wasn't going to connect with Face ever. So Orange would have got ground out of that game, even if he still had access to his inner fires.
And Glaser could have even tanked at 17-17 with his Face and still be right. So, we have the last matchup, and this is Glaser's different priests, since it's running actually Bone Mares, 2 of those. And at least Trailblazer, because it's not running Inner Fires and Divine Spirits, because it's running a single copy of Skulking Geist.
Glaser Priest, as he called it himself. We're
He's
struggling with
the best at being humble.
He really is, yeah. We were really struggling as to how to categorize this deck exactly, and then Glaser just came over and said, "Yeah, well, the matchup is a little bit different because I'm playing Glaser Priest." I'm like, oh, okay, well, sold. Glaser Priest it is.
Glaser as in Ice Formation.
Yes. Okay, let's go with that.
Well, he has Nourish. He has definitely. The Malfurion might be a little bit of a change because it's like a massive hunter. Just gets the hero power. That is a lot of damage. It's gonna pile on. So in this case, Orange needs to kind of be consistent with what the other 2 games, presented to him, which is you're gonna have to be faster than your opponent. Play the minions, try to deal the damage, finish off as soon as possible. So playing the Ooze on turn 2 just to get the damage done is important. Especially since you don't have a Wild Growth in your hand that is going to just do anything.
Right. Seems reasonable. We'll get met with one of these 3 drops, whichever Glaser considers least valuable in the long term. Either one will contest very nicely.
Which one would you prefer?
So, I think if your opponent has Jade Blossom, he probably coins Jade Blossom a lot of the time. Wow, Glaser actually plays nothing. Interesting.
Oh, okay.
I would have actually expected him to contest, but I definitely do not know how to play Glaser Priest, because no one plays this deck apart from Glaser. So, I will give him the benefit of the doubt, but I would have thought I wanted to contest it. And possibly he just values both of these cards too much long term, because sticking a big threat with Cabal Talon Priest against Jade Druid, obviously they no mulch anymore. They don't really play Naturalize, apart from a few niche positions. So if you can make a 5/9 Draconid Operative or whatever it is, then that's just going to stick to the board forever. And then Twilight Acolyte is kind of the inverse of that, which is if they get a huge pile of stats on the board, you can just neutralize it very nicely. So he considers both of those cards very, very valuable. But he is going to get hit in the face several times by an Acidic Swampooze now because of that decision.
I think it just values the fact that he can just play Noshar Cleric and Talon Priest next time.
Yep, it's also fair.
Lucky for Orange, he already drew 1 Jade Idol, so he can just, jam it in.
Yeah.
Was he thinking about coining out the Jade Spirit to get more beaters on the ground?
I don't think so. He's just using his time.
Well, next turn looks like coin Nourish. Because then you have access to Jade Behemoth on the upcoming turn, and then into Malfurion. Which sounds like a pretty good curve.
I was just about to say, my only issue with this Cleric curve that you pointed out is that you kind of walk into Nourish Wrath, which, your opponent has not had Wild Growth. They haven't had Jade Blossom. So you're narrowing down the range of cards they have in their hand at that point, right? Like, I think Nourish is quite expected, so then it's just a matter of whether or not they have the Wrath to pair with it. But it's a pretty ugly position for you if that does come out and just farms your Cleric for free.
Yeah, that's correct. What are the other options? I don't think there are other options that are more enticing than Nourish into Wrath. Actually, maybe it's better to play Malfurion into Behemoth than the other way around. Because I was thinking off curve, just because Behemoth gets you bigger stats when it comes to attack on board. But at the same time, you are actually getting an additional hero power with the Jade Behemoth. So that's kind of evening it out.
Yeah, I think Malfurion first makes more sense. Quick side note, Orange trading in his 1-1 there to play around Potion of Madness. He had a 3-1 and a 1-1 in play. So he just threw the 1-1 in so his board state could not get punished.
Especially since the 1-1 is kind of useless.
Yeah, it's
There's no synergy for having a 1-1 on the board.
Right.
He needs a dragon as soon as possible.
He really does.
Second Jade Idol. Alright, now I think it's actually important to play Behemoth into Jade Idol this turn, just to avoid a turn 6
Great point.
Skull King Geist.
Yep.
That allows you to get that additional high-end Jade Golem that is a 2-2. But, you know, jokes aside, it's actually important to get the value out of the card that otherwise will get destroyed.
Yeah, I mean, Orange probably has a read on Skulking Geist at this point as well, because Glacer's start has been so slow, right? That he hasn't played any of the Dragon Synergy, he hasn't seen Nether Spike come down, he hasn't seen a Twilight Drake get played, he hasn't seen Draconid Operative. So which cards does Glacer have in his hand? Well, I mean, sure, he does. This is a kind of a weird hodgepodge of a deck. He could have, you know, Bone Mares and Cabal Shadow Priests and so on in his hand, but the fact that Glacer's opening has been so slow does definitely give you kind of a read that Skulking Geist is in there, which is yet another reason why he breaks up the curve and goes with the second Jade Idol just to get value.
Kind of trying to figure out what is the best moment to play the Cabal Shadow Priest, because usually you want to save it for the Twilight Acolyte, but in this deck, in this matchup, there's only in particular one target that you really want to have, and that's Aya.
Aya, right, yeah.
Other than that, there's nothing really that motivating to steal. Apart maybe from Behemoth for the taunt.
Sure.
So jamming just a 4-5 on the board on turn 6 and steal 2-2 is not the worst deals in the history of trade deals, so
Yeah.
I don't mind that.
And it's looking like from this position, Orange is going to have to run out of value to really get into trouble here. He does have branching paths for card draw in his hand already, but if he doesn't get to a UI, or if he doesn't get to second branching paths or second nourish, then Glacer might be able to take over. But if Orange hits any of those cards in the near future, then he's probably going to be in business here. Glacer's start's just been too slow. There's no real pressure on the Jade Druid whatsoever. Looks like a Malfurion turn. Jade Spirit, branching paths. Looks, I mean, it's
Jade
okay,
Spirit,
I guess,
branching
but yeah, Malfurion just seems to make more sense. Especially since you so desperately you just want to draw cards with that branching paths based on your current hand. And by making a different play with Malfurion, you give yourself a chance to top deck Nourish, top deck UI next turn. Then you can use branching paths for minion attack if you do want to go for a pressure plan. There's that Bone Mare. And that is a sad sight for Bone Mare fans. All three of you.
So many. Okay.
It's just a 2-4. Yeah, Glacer just putting things on the board. No dragon to activate any of this stuff.
Well, he needs a target for Bonmer next turn, right? So he just wants to play everything on the board just to have the synergy, since Bonmer is actually the card that is most impressive against Druids. in this matchup. So this is gonna be a little rough for Glaser actually. After Orange will be able to clear the entire board. He didn't still draw a single dragon, right?
No, I don't believe so.
19 cards left in the deck. That's a little bit unlucky, I would have to say.
Death is eternal. My turn.
He has, what, 6 in total? Operatives, Drakes, and Duskbreakers.
Only 6. That is correct. Might be one of those matches, but all 6 on the last 6 cards. Never mind.
Hey, it's probably just bone mare time though, right?
Yeah, I think that's the turn.
And I think I was actually going to raise this question of, you know, clearing the whole board is a swipe hero power turn, or it's swipe and trade in your 1/4s, neither of which really felt great. So there's the option that Orange had, which was just, hey, let's just develop my Jade Spirit. If Bone Mare comes down, it kills a 1/4, and then I have Spellbreaker anyway. So I think, you know, this isn't him forgetting that Bone Mare is a thing after the nerf. This is him just seeing Bone Mare and going, well, Bone Mare's fine here. Like, he kills a 1/4, then I Spellbreaker his 2/4, and I have value trades on the board from that point.
Good point. But at the same time, you need value in the upcoming turns. So that branching paths probably use that double draw.
Nope.
Oh, that's one attack. Interesting.
Just going to go finish the game. Puts him to 4.
Okay. 4, but 4 is not enough if Glaser clears the entire board. What are the options? He can get a Duskbreaker from the Historian.
Yep.
And that allows him to kill everything.
Yes. He can even throw a Shadow of Death in alongside it to maintain some semblance of his board. And then he'd be 1 out of range. The problem then is hero power to face still puts him down to 1, and then he heals back up to 3, and then he's just dead the turn afterwards. But now this Power Word Shield needs to hit Duskbreaker, and now he can't death with it anymore, and it's not a Duskbreaker. Oh dear.
Well, that stuff can happen. Now we can kind of talk about the turn number 3, where Glaser didn't want to play anything.
Right.
And did that affect the long-term plan in this game? Was it important? Was it more important to actually play something and just not skip the turn, right? In this case, the Jade Druid from Orange is a tempo-based deck because he wants just to be faster than the priest to seize control of the board and dictate the conditions of trades and just dictate the amount of damage. By the way, great play by Orange with that plus attack on the branching paths because that allowed him to put pressure and put his opponent in a situation when he either has the answer and maybe stabilizes or just straight out loses the game.
Yep. I mean, I agree. I said it at the time. I really felt like that ooze needed contesting or else it was going to hit him several times. And it really did. I think in the end, it was cleared with like Pyromancer plus spell on 3 turns later, I think.
Yep.
So,
and it killed the cleric as well for just no value at all.
Right, with the Wrath.
Yep. Well, now we have priest on priest action, and I think Glaser needs to keep the silence in his hand because Orange will be enticed to play his Divine Spirit Identifier combo as soon as possible as well, to just get a good trade or get a really good push for damage early in the game. And in this case, Glaser will have an answer to that, since Orange knows that there's also Skulking Guys in that deck. And that will just push him to play those spells as soon as possible. Yeah, especially when you have those in the hand and you don't want to lose, them in the process of just being discarded.
Yeah, we keep kind of running it into the ground, but yeah, Skulking Geist in every single deck is making Orange have to get creative. That's why you saw two Jade Idols just getting slammed in the previous series. That's why you saw him go all in on a 7/7 in the matchup against Mage super early on with his Radiant Elemental. Like, he's just trying to find a route where these 1-mana spells can get the job done. And there you go again, straight away. Power Word Shield comes
look at
down.
that.
Divine Spirit, Inner Fire to back it up next turn. That Silence Keep from Glaser is going to prove absolute money.
Good call by Glaser to keep it up. Although, maybe we'll see one more turn of a wait game from Orange, because he has the Talon Priest. That means he can get the Elemental to 8 HP, attack for 2 damage. Skull King Guys is still far, far away, and that means he can just deal 16 damage next turn instead of 10.
You might be right.
And you will still gain the free attack from the Talon Priest in the upcoming turn. So I like the Talon Priest more, especially since you're not losing tempo from this turn with the hero power. That is kind of pointless.
And also remember, this is a very different deck that he's up against from Glaser. There are 2 copies of Shadow Word Death in Glaser's deck. Like, normally, Shadow Word Death is not something that you're worrying about when you're facing the Dragon Priest mirror, or even against Spiteful Priest. But against Glaser Priest, Shadow Word Death is a card that you have to contend with. So going all in is much, much scarier than it would be otherwise.
There's a 2/8. And there's the Skulking Geist.
Is he doing it? He is.
Ooh,
Okay,
somebody going
preemptively.
for it. Okay. Yeah, I think the potential burst with just 16 damage right now
Yes.
is too much. Or just death.
Right.
You know, double Divine Spirit, Inner Fire, GG.
Yes. And it's, you know, it's not just Divine Spirit Inner Fire that you put your opponent on, because it's a Radiant Elemental. Like, they can make silly things happen with Shadow Visions as well,
Exactly.
and they still have enough mana to make everything happen. So, yeah, good decision. Does mean that Orange now gets to get some value out of his Twilight Drake, which wouldn't have been the case otherwise, now that that silence is gone. Again, 2 copies of Silence in this deck for Glaser. I'm assuming to complement the Wild Pyromancer package a little bit more alongside the Power Word Shields is the reason for playing 2 of them, or part of the reasoning for playing 2 of them. But again, very different animal that people are having to learn how to play against pretty much on the fly here, which, you know, you can argue about a few of the decks in this tournament because we're in a fresh meta just after the nerfs. But, you know, Glaser in particular is the only guy playing this deck.
Yeah. When I was just, you know, before the tournament, I was just reading the deck list. I'm like, oh, this is an interesting metagame choice.
Right.
Especially very brave decision to take a deck like that in a tournament setting that you have never played before. It's like literally a new world.
Yeah, when we first got sent the deck list link, you know, I looked through, I gave it, as soon as I saw it, I like opened it up, gave it a quick scan through and was just sort of checking archetypes. And I opened Glaser and I just went, oh, yeah, you know, okay, there's
You saw the Duskbreaker, no
yeah, I was
like,
like,
oh, yeah, Dragon Priest.
There's Control
Next one.
Warlock, Control Mage, Control Paladin, and Dragon Priest. Oh, okay, next. And then just opened someone else's. And then it wasn't really till I went back to like actually dig into tech cards and things that I noticed it was a completely different deck.
So next turn might be already a Skulking Geist, because that changes the dynamic of decisions for Glaser. He will not be worried anymore. Oh, wow, he just goes for the operator this turn. All right, so scratch that. He just wants to put the most beefy body on the board. So this can be almost lethal with that second Divine Spirit draw. 1 off.
Wrong card.
Almost. Still get a 10-10, push for 11 damage. Play the Historian first, maybe.
What
problem is your opponent not only has another Silence, Shadowwood Death, but also Twilight Acolytes in his deck. And that's such a huge problem whenever you use the buffs and you're not sealing the game.
Right, and I think that's why we saw a pick of Twilight Acolyte off the Draconid Operative from Glaser, so that he can have that insurance policy, because his Shadow Visions is actually quite diluted, right? If he's going to Shadow Visions and go fishing for Shadow Word Death, he's by no means guaranteed to get it because of all the extra spells he is playing.
He goes for it, so that Twilight Acolyte will be proven very useful.
Oh, well, as far as high-value silences go...
But it's just worth it to just slam the Twilight Acolyte to just get a 10-4 minion on the board?
I mean, you can do both, right?
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah.
At the same time, no, you have to do both. Because a second Inner Fire will just probably make a big difference.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he will just go for another Operative and then just Silence.
I can see that too.
You see that Glaser always... If he has an option, he just plays the Operative. And I don't blame him. It's a powerful card. Gives you another batch of options for the upcoming turn.
Yeah. So there you go. Have 2, have 10. Debated, just kidding. You've got 1 health now.
Yikes.
There you go. Snap pick on the death. Just
Well,
to make sure none of that nonsense can happen again.
The death is fantastic just against a Draconid Operator.
Yeah.
One spends 5 mana developing a minion. You just slam it, Shadowwood Death, gain tempo. Get that 15 damage to the base.
And now he does have the Skulking Geist follow-up from this point, which means, once again, Orange's hand is going to lose a good chunk of its value.
Wow, those are poor options.
Are they?
You just want to pick Elise?
Yeah, I mean,
your opponent has 15 damage on board.
Sure, yes, I understand that. It's a fair point.
You want to Shadowwood Death.
Yeah. But even then, you're still potentially taking 10, and here you go, exactly. You can use the Inner Fire to neutralize the 10-4 anyway. I think Elise was actually a pretty good choice in that position. You need some kind of value plan because the Inner Fire plan is done. I love Orange's use there. Again, it's just a smart play. First off, to recognize that's a possibility. Second of all, just the timing to play around Skulking Geist. And now he's got an alternate game plan, which is, value train of Elise and Ysera, just trying to get him through.
And Shadow Visions as well.
Shadow Visions on the pack, exactly. But he's got a mountain of Draconid Operatives to come up against. And as soon as he puts that pack in his deck, Draconid Operatives can then rip them out again for Glaser.
Yeah, oh my god. This is where the game just becomes kind of weird. If both players will just rip packs after packs, suddenly they're left with random cards and we have no clue what's happening.
Yeah.
Or what can happen.
Suddenly we have to remember the Ungoro expansion all over again.
Yeah.
I wonder.
Well, the 9 damage going to his face is not really an end of the world. It's not bomber turn anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it's not really the best. But Divine Spirit on this minion on Elise, I think it's a decent choice right now.
And you can see Glaser's reaction there. He did look down. It wasn't a, oh, damn, I lose kind of thing, but it was a, yeah, he needed that. That he needed something like an Elise off the Operative to really give him any chance coming back into this. So there was a little bit of disappointment that he does see it come down, but he knows he's still in a fantastic position nonetheless.
Now some people might argue that why do you want to play Skulking Guys when in most situations doesn't really do much. But the counterpoint is that the fact that Glaser has Skulking Guys in his deck completely changed the way Orange played his game.
Yeah, 100%. In every match of this series, every game of this series, it's made Orange do something outside of the box to try and get value out of 1-mana cards before turn 6.
And it's something that you just don't see because it has to be. You have to be in mindset of the player to know what's up, why this decision was made,
Right.
just because of a card that might not even be played in this game.
Yes.
But because of the simple fact that it is in that deck.
And it's very much a factor of deck building in general, particularly when you know the tournament that you're going into is going to be open deck list. There's another release, by the way.
But the problem is you're running out of health.
That's also very true. Especially when you're going into a tournament that you know is open deck lists, you can put cards in your deck that just kind of affect the way your opponents play, right? And that's a very difficult point to quantify as to what effect that can have, you know, just by having Leroy's in your deck is the classic example that George C. told us about in the very first time we ever heard from him way back in 2016 HCT. He said he put Leroy in all of his decks just because it would make his opponents play badly and be scared of Leroy. You know, it's a real factor, like the unseen effects of making your opponents play differently.
11 damage going to the face, 15 damage with Bone Mirror. That's a lot of pressure.
And now even if Sarah doesn't make a dent in this board, it just gets chewed out immediately. It's just dead. He's just dead.
Well, Orange knew that this might have been a possibility. He was unfavored, so this is a really tough position.
Orange just going to give everything the once over here. But I'm afraid I've got some bad news. And that is that your worst nightmares have come true.
And it's not the nightmare from Isera.
As the dream gets drawn, exactly. And Glaser, who was in a very favorable position even before that matchup started, everyone would agree to that. Glaser himself, Orange, knew that he was in big trouble going into that series. Did say he put some work in to try and make some cute plays happen. And I think you could see that coming out. You know, he definitely did have some alternative game plans like we were talking about to try and find his way through. But in the end, the level of unfavored that he was in that series just came back to bite him in the end.
Yeah, just clever deck building from Glaser gave him
the
edge here. And something that we heavily talked about yesterday is that in new patches like this, in those situations, the players that will come up with some clever deck choices might have a huge edge over everyone else.
Hey, what's up? You must be feeling pretty great. Like, obviously, I spoke to Orange, and obviously we've all been saying that like you were insanely favored going into that series.
Yeah,
How
it was brutal.
How do you feel going into that series?
Pretty good.
Okay. So your lineup, when you like stuck Geists in every deck, like what were you aiming at specifically with the 4 Geists?
Mainly Priest.
Right.
I thought there will be like around 4 Jade Druids. Apparently it was only Orange that brought it, but still worked out. I found him.
Yeah,
I got my
exactly.
Jade.
Yeah,
And it's still good against Dragon. It gives the extra the edge. And it's like, it's not that bad of a body to play just on turn 6. So it's not terrible if they don't have any, if he doesn't get the value.
I also want to ask you about the Priest deck in particular. I don't know if you've been asked about this already, but this is the first game I've cast of yours. Like, it's a very unusual build of Priest. Like, what's the different, like, what the tech cards that you've put in, or the Pyromancer package, or whatever else? Like, which matchups is that helping you out in? Do you lose percentages in any other matchups?
Yeah, it helps in the Murloc Poly and the Dragon Priest one, because Pyro deals with the Cleric and the Historian early game. In the original list, I had Radiant Elemental, but I didn't have enough clears for Murloc, and I still wanted to keep the curve style of deck, so I can actually beat control decks, and it's better against Dragon Priest, because I get the board while still clearing their stuff with Silence and Deaths, and if I just have clears and I don't have the board, they can just like kill me out with the OTK, with like Potion of Madness if I don't draw the Jace. This way, I have the Jace as a backup lane. I also get the board. I have Silence, I have Shadow Word Death, so they really struggle to get a board. So I don't, like this game, he just uses Inner Fire. I didn't even need a Jace. He used both. And if he wouldn't, I had a Jace. But I just said the board. Devs cleared this stuff. Silences were insanely strong. It's just
Seems like a
it's
good
very
deck,
good
honestly.
in the Dragon
Yeah.
Mirror. Yeah.
I mean, well played, good deck building. How much did you prepare for this tournament?
Every minute I had, basically, in the last 3 days.
All right, awesome.
After
So
the nerf.
as soon as you got the message that the new patch is implemented, you probably just run straight away to your PC, right?
Yeah, I was like, nah, they're not gonna release the patch. And then, like 1 hour later, I'm like, oh, okay,
Oh,
let's
this
go.
is awkward. All right. Let's...
Did you
I was kind of happy about it, though.
Exactly my next question. Were you happy about the new
Yeah, like,
patch?
I don't consider myself a great deck builder, so it's not even good for me. But I had people that helped me out, and I was kind of bored with the last patch already and cards, so I was excited to play some new stuff. And I knew a lot of players, like the decks I'm gonna bring are gonna be good. Regardless if I like build good decks or not, I'm just gonna bring the good decks, or I'm gonna find something special that's gonna be good as well. And I know a lot of other players are gonna bring like weaker decks and like bad tech cards, so I know I'll have that edge. Because I know how to bring the refined decks. I net deck people, it's like my strength, so I know what everyone plays. I'm always aware what's good and what's in the meta. So I was really prepared for this.
So final question from me. I think, last year, obviously, we cast you during HGG. That was the first time I really found out who you were. And I think it's fair to say, you were one of the like breakout stars of HGG, if you want to put it that way. And a lot of us said this guy could have a big year in 2018. Now that that's kind of actually starting to happen a little bit, like how do you feel? Right, yeah, how do you feel?
Yeah, finally it's like my biggest tournament probably, like because I'm getting so far right now. I had the winter playoffs against Pavel that I lost top 8, which was big, but I was so unknown and I didn't even have Twitter back then, so I didn't get any recognition from the tournament. People just forgot about it really quick, so this is my, I guess, big breakout, yeah.
Lesson learned. Everyone care about your social medias.
Yeah, Glaser and Hunter Ace both actually have both lost in top 8 to Pavel in an HCT playoff.
He lost to him twice.
Yes,
though, so he's in the lead.
Pavel is the crusher of dreams, but you're here.
Bad,
he is not. You're looking to make a big name for yourself, and I'm sure you will. You're a great player as far as I'm concerned. So congratulations and good luck for the rest.